Good morning. Thank you for joining us for our August edition of Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food, featuring Dr. David Hughes. I'm Mickey French, stepping in for Charlie Arnott this month. I'm the new Executive Director of the Center for Food Integrity, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here to help to bring you this edition of Dr. Food. For those of you who may not be familiar, CFI is a not-for-profit organization whose sole mission is to help the food system earn consumer trust. CFI envisions a transparent, sustainable food system where practices align with consumer expectations and the public discussion is well-informed and balanced. I encourage you to learn more at foodintegrity.org about our member offerings, programs, trainings, and consumer research. We have a few different issues to chat about today, but top of mind for you, David, is travel. As we're talking to you from down under, I understand you've been on the road and between long lines and canceled flights, it took you 4 days to get there, only to find out another keynote speaker did his presentation by Zoom. So I'm sure they appreciated you being there in person.
It's just crazy at the moment, and I'm sure it's pretty much the same in the US. I mean, normally it takes, 24 hours, 2 times 12 hours to get to Australia. And I set off with good intent, but got halfway. And my flight from KL, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia to Australia was cancelled. Took me 30 hours to get another flight because all the seats were taken, for goodness sake. And what's more, Mickey, I've had 7 flights in the last 8 days, and all of them have had some issue. And what's it all about? It's about labor, really.
Yes.
Lack of pilots, lack of ground staff, and then mix it up with bad weather, and it's making for difficult travel. I know we'll get through this, but you need to add extra days onto your agenda, or else you'll get in trouble.
Very true. Very true. So we have a couple of things to talk about today, but just for background for the audience, at CFI, we frequently tap into the expertise of distinguished food experts like David, also known as Dr. Food, as we work to earn consumer trust in food. One way we do that is through our Trust Insights Council, and we're delighted that David Hughes is one of our council members, along with 10 other impressive food industry thought leaders. David remains an active presenter and is Emeritus Professor of Food Marketing at Imperial College of London. David's full bio can be found on our website at foodintegrity.org. So, David, let's dig in. Our first topic is about a recent survey regarding the high cost of food and consumer shopping habits. What did it find?
Right, and I think this is, really in the Center for Food Integrity's heartland. We've got an organization in the UK called the British Red Tractor Organization. And what it does is certify UK food and drink products to make sure that they're responsibly sourced, safely produced, and come from crops and animals that have been well looked after. And it's just published a survey that I thought was very interesting. And it was looking at, with the cost of food going up, are you changing your purchase decisions? Good question. I mean, half the respondents said, no, we've got to eat, so we're buying the same. But 1/4 said they were buying cheaper products. And I'll come back to that. 30% buying less meat because they perceive that as being the most expensive, and 13% buy less fruit and veg. Well, it's worrisomely, as they trade down, if you will, and look to buy lower priced meat, they're also, food in general, they're worried about, I wonder if this lower priced food is made to the same standards as is normally the case. So trust in British food has slipped this year from last year, from 80% last year, which is high, to 70% this year, because of this perception that they were buying cheaper or inferior products. I think that's a concern, but I was particularly interested too. In the survey, they didn't only ask about UK food, did you trust it? They also asked about American food. And American food has relatively low trust with British consumers. I mean, why? You're a great food producing country, but actually this reflects the bad press American food has got and is still getting with the extended coverage of the proposed USA-UK free trade agreement. The items in particular are the chlorine washed chicken. For some reason or another, the tabloid, the gutter press got hold of this and said, no, we don't want it. And also there's this continuous concern about hormone growth hormones in cattle and beef. So it's a reminder that, particularly on these free trade agreements, it's often as not, in this particular case, it's British farmers saying, how can we protect ourselves? And it's in their interest to come up with stories. Here I am in Australia, and it's exactly the same for Australian food in the UK. We're in the process of negotiating free trade agreement, UK and Australian food has slipped in the mind's eye of the consumer when it comes to trust.
Yeah. I think some of the purchase trends are similar in the US, but yeah, there's the trust and the press can often take a hold of things in a not so productive way. So our next topic is likely creating a buzz, pardon the pun. I had to do a Charlie dad joke in his absence in both the UK and the United States. It looks like the EU is upping the ante regarding insecticide and pesticide bans, but for the safety of bees versus the safety of consumers. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's it. A really interesting one. It's about, if I can pronounce it right, neonicotinoids. So neonics, as they're known in the UK. So that's an insecticide. That's used widely around the world, not least in the USA. I mean, you use it on corn, wheat, soy, sorghum, canola, rapeseed. But back in 2018, neonicotinoids were banned in the EU, including the UK, of course, at that time, because of high-level concerns that the insecticide was destroying pollinators, particularly, specifically, really, the bee population. And the EU, at the most senior level now, senior politicians are saying, we're going to take this a step further, and they're proposing to ban the imports of food from countries that are continuing to use neonics, which includes America, of course. Well, and as you say, the reason for the ban, it isn't to safeguard the health of European food consumers, it's to safeguard the health and safety for bees. And because the view is that we're destroying the global environment, why, as European consumers, would we bring in food which has been produced using these neonics? But there'll be a big fuss about this. Why? Because I think particularly at the WTO, the World Trade Organization, remember the WTO has its role is to ensure that the world trade flows smoothly and freely as possible. And this EU initiative on other countries using neonics will be seen as a clear constraint to trade. So there's going to be a big mess here, I would suggest. But what rather darkly amuses me is that the EU, or chemical producers, chemical manufacturers in the EU, are making neonicotinoids and exporting them. Typically to countries which have lower incomes and maybe lower environmental standards. So it's on the one hand, we're trying to stop, on the other hand, we're trying to make money from this. It'll be interesting to see how this one pans out.
Yeah, for sure. I know on this side of the pond, we're spending a lot of time planting wildflowers and milkweed for the benefit of the bees and the butterflies. So, and finally, David, before you left the UK for Australia, somebody turned up the heat. I was in France last week as well, and boy, was it hot. Tell us more about that.
Well, no, exactly. It's just as I was leaving the UK, in the south of England, it hit 40 degrees C, which is 105 Fahrenheit. I mean,
unbelievable.
Where you were, and in Spain and Portugal, it was even higher than that. But specifically us Brits, we can't cope with those sort of. We're not set up to do it, for goodness sake. We don't have air conditioning.
Right.
We've only recently got into heating, for goodness sake. And what happened last week? It was again chaotic. Roads melted, train lines buckled, and that didn't help the creaking transportation system, which was already under stress from labor shortages, particularly as far as supplying food to supermarkets, and it's making a bad scene even more difficult. I mean, food price inflation, for example, here we are in August now. It's expected to hit 15% come this October. And amusingly, the tabloid press jumped on the fact that some of our major supermarkets are putting security tags, the things you normally put on bottles of champagne and liquor to stop people pinching them, but they're putting them on packs of butter and cheese, as the prices have leapt by 20% in the last few months. So no, it's a big deal. Mickey, I'm leaving Australia this evening, as it happens, to go to Vietnam. And I'm just reminded for you guys, and many of you know Australia well, but it's a very big island, my Lord. In fact, it always intrigues me. It's got the same land area as the USA, apart from Alaska, but you've got 330 million people here. And in Australia, it's only 26 million. So it's pretty much empty. Actually, it's a big sand, and most of the is driven by what they just dig out of the middle, like bauxite, iron ore, coal, etc. But they're pretty good at agriculture, as you know. And here's just a little tidbit on grain and oilseed farming as I leave Australia. I've been in the huge state of Western Australia. Incidentally, Australia has 6 states, you've got 50, but the Australian states are big. WA, as it's called, Western Australia, is 4 times the size of Texas, for example. Wow. And it's a big producer of wheat, barley, and canola. And peak harvest, it was pouring down when I was there, and they were loving it. Peak harvest months are November and December, and they're having particularly good rains this season. And the crop forecasts are absolutely excellent. And of course, it's at a time when they have high prices by historic standards. And I'm reminded, well, I've been reminded in Western Australia that farmers, they're not nasty people, but they do take some pleasure from noting agronomic disasters in countries where the competitors are farming. And I know it's been very dry in parts of the USA, and of course, we've got the tragedy of the Ukraine. So the farmers I was talking to, they're looking forward to really bumper crops and bumper returns this year. And they think they can even manage the pressure they're getting from high input costs because their yields will be so high and the price is so good. So yeah, Australian farmers have got a big smile on their face, and have a good week. I'll be back in October actually to Australia, but on I go, and let's hope my flights to Vietnam are in place. I bet I have a problem, but I'll love it when I get there.
Well, better luck in your travels this time, and thank you so much, David, for your time today, as always. And that's all for this edition of Dr. Food. I really enjoyed being a guest host. We appreciate you joining us for this fast 15 minutes in food. And I hope your calendar is marked for these sessions the first Thursday of each month. Join us on Thursday, September 1st for Connecting the Dots with Dr. Food, insights from across the pond and around the world. To learn more about CFI and other upcoming events and more about our Trust Insights Council, visit us at foodintegrity.org. David, have a great day and safe travels.
Thanks very much, Mickey, and look forward to talking to you guys in September. Cheerio now. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.